So your boy Millennial Smart didn't call this out. He agrees with everything WWE does. He didn't call it out that you gave a title to someone because they was a part of the bloodline. Not only did it hurt the title and made it less prestigious, you stripped the guy of the title for some made up rules. Now look what this dude say. So much for holding on to the top of the North American title, but damn, another ladder match, granted, is coming from WWE. But still, feels like I've seen 100 of these this year. At least it makes sense given that HBA announced it. So, anything that HBK say is gospel. This is why I told you about the WWE Mark. So he says that something about not winning the right way, and he don't say anything about this. But here he goes again, talking about AEW. Remember, I made a video yesterday about him trying to talk about female wrestling when Bianca Belair was part of it. Now he goes against it. Now let's hear him talk about this.
We have stronger bone density. There's a lot of things that qualifies just from the naked eye alone that tells you that it's unfair to have women compete against men. The average woman competing against the average man. Or even if you have a superior woman competing against a superior man. If you want to fucking misconstrue and misinterpret logic and say something like Ronda Rousey, for an example, fighting some average Joe Schmo, then obviously that's the exception to the rule. It's actual training in itself. But if you take Ronda Rousey and put her up against Conor McGregor, she's gonna get dusted. Like, that's just fucking obvious. So why are we talking about professional wrestling when we're trying to insert logic into everything, or at least try to make a logical argument that's never presented? Can someone tell me that? Why is that never a presented argument within professional wrestling when you're trying to make sense out of everything? Because it's politics at the end of the day. That's why. That's the reason why we have all the women being inserted into everything that the men are doing nowadays, because they're trying to meet a fucking quota.
But you was just praising Sami Zayn being a background player. You the same dude who talks shit about Joshi. They don't have to worry about this politics shit. There ain't no feminism bullshit going over there mad rapping like that. They don't have women going into the matches trying to do what the men do. Stardom had one cage match in their whole history. And I think they had one ladder match in their whole history. They never tried to do what the men do. You have female death wrestlers that are female that go against men, but they don't beat them. Even the toughest female don't beat the lower card man. She survives it, but she never beats him like that. But this is the guy who criticizes anything that's outside of the WWE system. He will talk about AEW. He will talk about Tony Khan. He will talk about Kenny Omega. He will be talking about Joshi. I told you about this dude. He's a WWE Mark. Anything WWE, he won't say anything bad about it. Anything outside of that, he will talk absolute shit about it.
I just heard War Games was actually last night, obviously. I mean, because I was at work last night. I heard War Games was announced for Survivor Series. Cool. Awesome. Of course, there has to be one dictated towards the fucking women. Just like the Royal Rumble is dictated towards the fucking women. Just like the Elimination Chamber is dictated towards the fucking...
This is how I know that this dude didn't watch NXT. There was a women's war games before. It was never trying to be just like the women. They needed to have a squash match between the heels and the baby faces.
Women. And I have to ask myself, I said this once and I'll say it again. Maybe it changed over time, but at the last time I checked it about 2 years ago, the percentage of women in the audience of professional wrestling nowadays is 3%. Again, it could have changed over time. It could have fluctuated as far as sets are considered. But the last time I checked, a couple of years ago, it was 3% of women. Who are we legitimately aiming at from a business perspective to keep this charade going? Really, who?
You dumb piece of little shit. You want casuals to watch WWE. This is why you talk about captivating shows and all this other shit and high numbers. You are yourself as a casual who watches only WWE and shits on AEW. It's trying to produce. This is what WWE been about for the majority of their existence. To get people who never liked wrestling to like wrestling. It worked in the 80s and the 90s. And then when they lost some star powers in the middle of the early 2010s or whatever, around there, before the 2010s, then they had to figure out a plan to keep the hardcore fans happy. This is why you had the CM Punks and the indie talents coming in. And then they found their golden goose, John Cena, and they kept pushing him to try to get the casuals to come back. And it didn't work because then the hardcores left. And then they kept the casuals as long as they could to believe John Cena was the biggest thing. And then once people grew up, they left because they didn't like John Cena. And then John Cena left. So they're pushing the same people you want to watch wrestling. So you want wrestling to be in the golden age again. This is why you always talk about the old days. So they're trying to bring in people like all these other companies trying to bring in people they think that's going to watch their product, and they never do.
And I get it. The demographics in regards to the 18 to 49, so-called 18 to 49 demographic that would care about a match like this has drastically changed. Yes, I understand that the same demographic in the 18 to 49 isn't the same demographic of the 18 to 49 about 25 years ago. There's a difference between seeing a so-called Chad or a guy with a football uniform on or a guy who's drunk in college with a backwards hat watching professional wrestling compared to nowadays your well-trimmed beard, or hell, actually the majority of you guys, the beard going down to your dick, looking at women. You're saying to yourself like, oh man, this is the closest I'll ever get to actually interacting with a woman, so maybe.
And here we go with the digs and here goes with the digs. This is why I say that these guys think they're more superior than anybody else. Like I said before, these guys, the sex shaming, the women shaming that they do towards men, and they don't believe that some men just don't want to date or deal with them in America, or just don't want to deal with the kind of shit that they see other men deal with women. Even the guys who so-called get women have to do more shit and still get treated like shit. But hey, this dude thinks he the ultimate guy in looks and he can get any girl he want. Mind you, this guy is having another kid on the way. I think he said something about somebody pregnant or something. So, did anybody see this dude's girlfriend or wife? If she ain't a top model, then he can't talk about anybody getting close to no females. If you talking this big stuff, you better have a woman that can shit on everybody.
want to see more of that on my television. Now, you don't want to go out there and be a man and say that you want to see them how you really want to see them, which is butt naked and stripping and twerking and all that shit. No, instead you want to pretend that you're some gallant man, that I am a...
Most men are not going to go to no strip club no more because they see it as a scam. And they're not going out there because they see dating as a scam. That you're wasting more money. Does this guy even look at TikTok? Does this guy even look at the real world? Yeah.
Man of honor and chivalry, and I want to see them go out there, and I want to see them actually wrestle. But they're half naked enough where I could pretend that I care a fuck about them actually wrestling, but in reality...
This is the same guy who was talking against women's wrestling and told he wanted women to go back into bikinis because he doesn't care about women's wrestling. I can go to those videos that he put out there. This dude doesn't keep up with anything that he says.
I just have to stare at their naked bodies. I am honor. I am chivalry. Shut the fuck up, dude. Okay? We all know the reason why you want to see them wrestle at the end of the day is because this is the closest you'll ever get to a fucking girl. But
here we go with the jabs at people, talking about is the closest thing. See, this is why I said these guys who have to take digs at people and women shame men and sex shame men, they're the most inadequate, weakest dudes out there. In real life, there's people that are probably over him, and the only thing he can do is to make videos like this and try to shit on people. This, mind you, I've seen people get killed. Well, one person get killed before. So nobody is better than nobody. But yeah.
Guess what? That's fucking fine. Because in the end of the day, you recognize that you're a fucking man. And you have needs. And you have wants. And these are the things that you want to see. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But having them actually try to perform in a match that's designated to, at the very least, and this is just my own opinion, put across masculinity, it's a war games match. The fact that we don't even have blood in the match is bad enough. But now you want to fucking even further feminize it by having nothing but women in the match? Come on, bro. Get real, man. Get real. And you're legit doing all of this on the basis of politics. You're doing all this on the argument of equality. And I find it to be, in my honest opinion, this is just me, I find it to be insulting. I find it to be insulting that you're using what I like in order to push your dumbass politics. Because I can't think of another reason as to why you would want to have the match present itself on the show when I don't know who the fuck you're trying to curtail this to in the end of the day. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe you can tell me. Maybe somebody in the audience can tell me, who are you legitimately trying to curtail this all to in the end of the day? And obviously you're going to have some soy boys in the audience who are going to probably be like, why do you care so much, millennial? Huh? You're such a sexist. Why do you care so much? Don't you want to see the women? Oh no, you don't want to see the women because you want to control their body. Just stupid arguments that make no sense whatsoever. It's just to deflect from the fact that I'm bringing up a point that you yourself can't really necessarily go out of your way to, and this is just my opinion. I mean, you can prove me wrong in the comment section. You're just bringing up these whole ad hominems and all this other bullshit to deflect from the fact that you can't legit confront the situation on the premise because you were never confronted with anything hard in your fucking life outside of your dad's dick when you were 6 years old. That's your problem. That's not my problem. But I'll counteract that with the why do you care? With why do you care?
Why do you care about what other men get? So we got to make this point right here, right? So women, there's been a women's war game. There's been a women's war game ever since 2019. So why do you have a problem now that it's been 3 years of women's war game You didn't say anything back then. So why are you saying stuff now? And your girl Bianca Belair was in the first women's war game. So I thought you would be happy about that.
It ain't me. It ain't the burden on me. It's not to answer back as to why the fuck do I care about the women being in the ring wrestling. That's on you to tell me why the fuck do you care so much to the point that we have to fucking have the match. I'm asking, why do you care so much? Why do we have to have the women wrestling in a War Games match? Why do we have to have a second Royal Rumble? Because my answer would be the fact that I don't want it taken away from the men's match. That's going to mean more. From a performance standpoint, the men will outperform the women. This isn't NXT where you have a bunch of fucking jobbers who are on equal footing for the most part. We're talking about seasoned veterans in the ring.
And this is what I'm talking about. So now that these guys are on the main roster, he wants to acknowledge them. But most people in NXT wasn't jobbers. They were the same people that were in the main roster now. And they did outperform the women because there was only... most of the War Games was catered to the Undisputed Era. For what? For what is it? Let's see if Undisputed Era was in that match. Yup. And the third War Games, the last of the War Games, was 2021. Was the New Era. So 2 matches with Undisputed Era of the War Games, and then 2.0 after everybody left.
That's from an in-ring perspective. You guys know how I feel about the in-ring perspective. Never really cared for it all too much, but I'm going to use it as a logical point right now.
Wow, wait. I never cared about the in-ring. So he's just here to watch basically TV. Instead of watching a TV show, he don't care if somebody put together 2 moves. He cares about the in-ring. I mean, he cares about a storyline. And y'all want to tell me that basically exposing him that he is a casual? So why is he talking about wrestling in general if he's just a casual? I know everybody can put their opinions out there, and it's not me trying to suppress somebody's opinion, but this dude think he thinks he's his opinion matters.
They're going to outperform them. The storyline that can take place in the War Games has more potential than any women's storyline right now. There's nothing that damage control, however you want to put them, there's nothing that they can do that's going to, for me, get me excited for War Games compared to, say, the Bloodline. There's stuff that's going to get me more...
And this guy had to put the Bloodline. So let's hear his explanation about the Bloodline.
Fired up to want to see a War Games match versus those 2 stables. One stable's going to outperform the other from an in-ring perspective and honestly from a creative perspective. If you really care so much about War Games and the women actually having some type of input inside it, then maybe build towards something that actually makes you want to give a damn about them performing in War Games.
Okay, here we go.
That's what a leader is. That's what a boss is. Notice how in both terminologies you have that word organization. You know what an organization is? It's business. You know what a business is? It's that thing that employs people to work underneath in order to make a product to put out there for a consumer to wait for it, buy, and wait for it, consume. But nowhere in these terminologies, and I could be wrong, I'm looking at the examples. No, not even in the examples for both definitions do I see, let's see. No, I definitely don't see pandering, favoritism, bias even. Let's see. No, I don't see any of that. No, I definitely don't see narcissistic, egotistical.
Wow, man, he's actually talking about himself.
I definitely don't see soy boy lying around here. No,
Yeah, you yourself is a soy boy.
none of that stuff. I absolutely see none of that terminology. I don't. It doesn't really fit the definition. I don't see it in any of the examples of what it means to be a boss and a leader. So tell me, how does Tony Khan get to call himself these words? Is it because of the position? Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like, with that position, usually those characteristics usually follow, right? I'll give you a perfect example. Let's stay within the field of professional wrestling. Vince McMahon. Can I ask you guys a question? Did you ever see Vince McMahon go on Twitter and consistently bash AEW every chance he got?
There's promos out there that was taking shot at AEW. They send cease and desist letters to the Young Bucks because they was using a hand gesture, because the Bullet Club was getting more popular than anything WWE was producing. They were taking signs from people in WWE that was referencing the Bullet Club. They even had Finn Balor try to make a new club to try to compete with the Bullet Club. They called the Balor Club, that never got off because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. So yes, he was doing a lot of different things. He just didn't do it on Twitter because Vince McMahon is behind the times. And everybody said who knows Vince McMahon, he was behind the times. That's why he had edicts and words that he banned, and it was all stupid. This is why Wrestling Logic, some of it is coming back on WWE TV. They can say hospital. They can say pro wrestling. They can say titles. Even Michael Cole finally doesn't have to hear somebody tell him what to do in the headset. They even acknowledge people that worked outside of WWE. They finally acknowledge that EO wasn't just in NXT. So yes, he did do stuff like that. It just was behind the scenes. It wasn't like public.
No, neither did I.
Okay, man. Let's end with that. So basically, Millennial Smart is a pretty much WWE Mark, who pretends he's not a mark for anybody.